Happy Tuesday, Razorback fans. You are 4 days away from Arkansas BYU over in Provo, Utah. Interesting matchup. Two teams coming off of a loss. BYU lost to Notre Dame 28-20. Arkansas, of course, blowout against Mississippi State over there in Starkville. But these are two teams that need a win. I was listening to BYU head coach Kalani Sitake. He talked about how, hey, we're kind of in the same boat. Like they need a win really bad. Their backs are against the wall, but we also need a win. If BYU loses, they're 4-2 right now. If they lose, they go to 4-3, and then Arkansas is 4-3 as well. So, two teams with high expectations going into the season. You knew both teams had tough schedules. BYU's played a hard schedule. They played Baylor, Oregon, Notre Dame. We know what Arkansas' schedule has looked like. So, should be an interesting game. We got a lot to get to today. We're going to hit headlines from Monday. We heard from Sam Pittman. We went to practice. A lot of stuff to get to here on the Gridiron Hogs podcast. I'm Mason Choate. I've got Robert Stewart with me. Robert, let's lead off with what Sam Pittman said about Malik Hornsby. So Malik Hornsby came in, did not start the game against Mississippi State, but he came in, did really well, stole the backup job. Back. He took it back. He was the backup, took it back from Cade Fortin. Now he's listed as the backup on the depth chart. Sam Pittman said he talked with Malik. They're going to cut it out with the wide receiver stuff. He's going to focus strictly on being a quarterback. And Pittman basically said, we think that we can develop him there really good if we just focus him at quarterback. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense for them to continue to do something that doesn't work, right? Pittman alluded to that yesterday. I really do think that there was a right way to use Malik Hornsby out wide in a Kendall Briles offense, and they never demonstrated that they could do it correctly. So they wasted that. It was a experiment. It was an experiment with poor results, and they need not go back to it. He proved himself as the night and day difference. He's a better passer, right? We've heard them talk about that all fall camp, all the first 6 weeks of the season. He proved that with that 54-yard touchdown to Bryce Stevens or whatever it was. He missed some throws, but KJ misses some throws too. So he was very clearly more effective than Cade Fortin on Saturday. And I mean, he shows you exactly why he needs to be number 2 on the depth chart.
Yeah, kind of, and along the same lines of what you said, Sam Pittman was basically like, yeah, the plays that we ran for him at wide receiver, it just didn't work, and I don't think it was ever going to work, those cutesy little plays. It's just too much. If you're the defense, when Malik Hornsby is on the field, that he's on the field for one reason and one reason only, and that is to probably run the ball. If KJ Jefferson's on the field, unless they're going to do some kind of pass out to Hornsby and then he's going to throw it. But that when he's out on the field, most of the time they didn't really even use him as a decoy. They just would give him the ball. So it didn't work. It makes sense to keep him at quarterback now, especially that he's solidified that backup spot. One thing they talked about was because we like Cade Fortin so much, that allows us to do things with Malik. Well, now you see that Malik is, at least against Mississippi State, significantly better than Cade Fortin. I mean, we know that Cade Fortin looked better in practice. Apparently, a lot of guys look better in practice. So that's another controversial topic for another day. But let's also talk about KJ Jefferson. So Sam Pittman said that basically KJ is cleared. He should play against BYU on Saturday. He's going to have a normal week of practice. He said no contact for him on Monday, but that's no different than really any practice. The quarterbacks don't get hit. So that is a good sign for Arkansas. You want to have your starting quarterback. It's one of those things that you think about against Mississippi State. How much different is that game if KJ Jefferson's the quarterback? Your defense still gave up 40 points, and you have a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball, and they just keep piling up. And we'll get into that some more. But offensively, Robert, how much do you think it changes if KJ Jefferson's the quarterback against Mississippi State? I know it's a big what if, and it doesn't matter anymore, but you got to think moving forward, you need to have KJ Jefferson.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it feels like they probably wouldn't have looked lost as often as they did, and that, I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say they looked lost with Cade Fortin under center. Um, that there was just too much inconsistency, and part of it had to do with Hornsby taking a big hit. I know he was not able to finish one drive because of that. So the revolving door of quarterbacks that game, just it felt like they could never get a rhythm going. Um, so I think if they have a healthy KJ Jefferson that plays every single snap on offense, then you have a heck of a lot more consistency, and maybe you don't lose by 23. But I don't know if they win that game. The defense just, we all know what the defense is at this point, and I don't think a KJ Jefferson led offense was going to be enough to counteract that. But I do think it's a lot more competitive.
Yeah, and so with Malik, I mean, you got to give credit where credit's due. He did a great job, given the circumstances. But you think of those two fourth down plays there in the red zone, especially the one on the goal line. Like if KJ Jefferson is in there, those are probably plays that Arkansas converts or have a better chance at converting because KJ's in there.
Right. I mean, they don't have to get cute on the goal line there, right? Like that it felt like a total waste of a play.
And maybe in that situation they do still get cute, but maybe KJ keeps it and doesn't hand it off to Rashad Opinion, stuff like that. But a lot of what ifs in a game that is over that Arkansas lost. Let's move forward. Let's talk about this defense. We know that Bumper Pool dealing with a hip injury. He's going to power through. I mean, he refuses to wear a green jersey at practice. I don't think Bumper Pool's the guy that's going to do that, but you can tell it's bothering him. His hip, Sam Pittman has said it. Bumper Pool has said it. He's hurt. He's playing through an injury, and he's going to keep playing through an injury because Arkansas needs him. You think about the secondary. Kari Johnson has an injury. Miles Slusher, you don't know if he's going to play. Jaden Johnson, you don't know if he's going to play. You already lost Catalan. You already lost Ladarius Bishop. You got so many injuries. I mean, Trent Gordon had to play significant snaps against Mississippi State, and he had the worst coverage grade per Pro Football Focus against the Bulldogs. So that's an issue, and that's why we saw last week Hudson Clark moved over to safety. Sam Pittman basically said, like, look, I mean, Hudson Clark will do what you ask him to do, but he's not built to play safety. But he did it, and he did an adequate job. That's not word for word, but I feel like that's kind of what he's getting at. You had to move Hudson Clark to safety. Sam Bakke, a big thing was Sam Bakke, freshman wide receiver. He started taking reps at corner on Monday. What did we see? We saw Sam Bakke was taking reps at corner, and we also saw other freshman wide receiver Quincy McAdoo running at wide receiver. Now, I don't know. Cornerback. Did I say wide receiver?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, freshman wide receiver Quincy McAdoo running at cornerback. We don't know if these guys are going to get in the game. I mean, if these players keep dropping like flies, then they'll have no choice. But Arkansas continues to try to do what it can, what it's able to do in the secondary to get something to work. And I don't know, man. I mean, Quincy McAdoo has a club on his hand because he's got some kind of injury going on there, but at some point they gotta mix some things up, Robert, because they've tried sending the pressure, they've tried mixing up looks. Your linebackers can only do so much. Your defensive line, they got a lot of pressure early on in the season, but you haven't seen that recently, and you definitely didn't see it last week when they were rushing 3 against Mississippi State. So this defense has to continue to try to figure out what to do, and they have to adjust in game. That's something that they have to do, Robert.
Yeah, exactly. I believe the saying goes, "Insanity is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result." And we just didn't see anything really change as far as the looks that the Arkansas defense was giving the Bulldogs offense last week. I mean, they are clearly going to have to do something different if they want anything different to happen. Maybe anything they will do will be a failure because of the lack of starting personnel that they have from compared to week one, right? But you can't keep doing what doesn't work, right? you have to try something new.
Agreed. And so they're going to try to figure that out offensively. Going back to that side of the ball at receiver, you saw a lot of guys get some more looks than they normally have. You think Bryce Stevens, Jaden Wilson, those two guys played more snaps than you're normally seeing. You mentioned the Bryce Stevens 54-yard touchdown. Sam Pittman said he liked that play. It was a great throw, but he said it might have been a better catch by Bryce Stevens. So I think they got to figure something out there too, because Jaden Hazelwood has not been, the all-world receiver that you were hoping he could be. You've seen a few flashes. I mean, he had 2 big catches against Mississippi State, but he's not like a game breaker, Matt Landers, you haven't really seen a whole lot out of him aside from a couple of flashes. Warren Thompson, where the heck did Warren Thompson go? I mean, we thought that Warren Thompson was going to come in here. He's in his second year as a guy playing receiver for Arkansas, and you haven't seen it from him. Keytron Jackson, he's shown flashes. I think that really of all the guys, Keytron Jackson might have the highest ceiling. Maybe. What would you say that, Robert?
Sorry, with the mute button again. Yeah, I mean, I feel like he might, just because, I mean, think about what we heard from the receivers and receivers coach Kenny Guyton going into the season, right? Like, everybody thought that this was going to be the big weakness of the offense, maybe even of the team, and everybody thought that, that they weren't going to have it put together, just because, it's hard to replace Traylon Burks. That sort of goes without saying. But I mean, for them to take it personally like they did. They said, we've heard the noise. We're taking it upon ourselves to prove to the world that, we're not the issue here. It's not that they are the issue necessarily. It's just like they're not the answer.
Yeah, and you would like to get more out of Trey Knox too at tight end. I feel like Trey Knox hasn't really been that safety blanket that I thought he would be for KJ Jefferson, and then Malik Hornsby. I don't know. I feel like Trey Knox has such a high ceiling as well, and you just haven't seen it from him.
Right. I mean, I remember you had very lofty expectations for him going into the season, and it made sense. I mean, we've seen him, since you and I have been in college. We've seen Trey Knox like be the leading pass catcher on the Razorback offense. It's Chad Morris, so take it with a grain of salt. But at the same time, it's like this dude should be catching way more passes than he is. He should be a lot more involved in the offense than he is. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns against Cincinnati, right?
Yeah,
That feels significant. Like, he's got to have the at least close to the same number of targets that he got in that game, because he was important.
Yeah, with Trey Knox, I don't know how many routes they actually run for him per game, because in this offense, your tight end's going to be blocking a lot. That's just how the offense is designed. But you want to take advantage of a playmaker like that. He's got a size advantage. If he's matched up with a linebacker, he's probably got a speed advantage as well, because he's a former wide receiver. Yeah, he's put on some pounds, but he's still athletic. So, I think maybe you could take more advantage of what Trey Knox presents as far as a matchup with whoever's going to line up against him. Another guy that we haven't really heard from, and we know he's healthy, Dominique Johnson. Where'd Dominique Johnson go? I mean, he was great last season, and now, don't get me wrong, Rocket Sanders is a really good running back. But I think the number 2 running back on this team right now, based on snap counts, is Rashad Dubinion. And he's good too. But what happened to Dominique Johnson, man? I don't understand what's going on with that. I don't know. We haven't really gotten an explanation on that either. Aside from earlier on in the season, it seemed almost like it was a 1-2 thing for him to play. And so I don't know what's going on with him. What do you think, Robert?
Yeah, it's weird, right? I mean, we talked about it for feels like all of August and half of September. There's no reason to rush him back, but that period has long gone at this point, right? Um, it's baffling, because it felt like he was either 1A or 1B in your backfield last year, and it's strange to me that they just aren't using him as much. I mean, it would make sense if he is still trying to recover from an injury, but we haven't gotten any indication that that's the case, right? It does it feel a little bit like Traylon Smith last year, where he, had a really good season the year before, and now he's just not getting the touches?
Maybe a little bit. I think that's just what comes with a backfield like this where it's so crowded. As much as they want to get everybody touches, there's only a limited amount of snaps per game, and you're still going to be throwing the ball as well. So, uh, it's just tough. But he was a guy who was a big playmaker. I mean, he looked really good last season, and you haven't really seen it from him this year. But I think part of that is how good Rocket Sanders has been. You haven't really needed somebody to step up as, a 1B type guy, because Rocket Sanders has been one. He is the feature back for this team. He's a great running back. But it's just an interesting note to think about moving forward.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is no knock on Rashad Dominion, but it is interesting to me that they're going with the freshman instead of the proven guy in Dominique Johnson.
Yep, something to keep your eye on. All right, let's wrap up here on the Gridiron Hawks podcast. Tell you about our friends at myperfectfranchise.net. If you're a displaced corporate executive or wanting to put your career in your own hands, you need to call Andy Luedecke, longtime Rivals member and franchise veteran. He's owned multiple franchises and businesses, and he'll use that expertise to help you find your American dream through a very thorough and free consultation process. Call Andy Luedecke, and put your life and career in your own hands. It's 100% free. So what do you have to lose? The number is 404-973-9901, and the website is myperfectfranchise.net. Thank you to the people at myperfectfranchise.net. All right, go visit HawgBeat.com as well, HawgBeat.com, for all of your Arkansas Razorbacks coverage. We've got a lot of great stuff over there, so go check it out and get that subscription so you can get on the Trough message board. That's where we give you some insider information, premium content as far as Pro Football Focus grades goes, recruiting content as well. A lot of great stuff over there on HawgBeat.com. All right, we'll talk to everybody on Wednesday here on the Gridiron Hogs podcast.